Hey, it's Aaron. Today we're in a 2021 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe. So this is the new Jeep Wrangler, so current generation, in the Rubicon off-road package with the plug-in hybrid system. I want to talk a little bit about that system and show you some of the differences on the interior here that are created by that same system. I'm not going to do a full walkthrough like I normally do. I'm going to just show you what's going on in terms of the differences between a regular Wrangler Rubicon interior and this one. The differences are pretty small and they're mostly in the gauge cluster. But let's get to that. If you want a full interior walkthrough of an interior, if you want a full interior walkthrough of an interior, of a Wrangler Rubicon, you can find that at a link in the description below. I've done this generation already. There's really no reason to do another one, but I do want to show the differences with this plug-in hybrid 4xe versus the standard versions. So let's just get started. All right. So first thing to look at is the instrument cluster I talked about. So steering wheel and everything is pretty much the same. Everything over here is pretty much the same except down there. I'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the instrument cluster. Over here on the left, you have the tachometer and you have the engine heat. Now, currently, the whole system is on. I turned the vehicle on, but there's no RPM because it's running all electric. That brings us to this next portion. So down here you can see, this is some trip info. This should be interesting. This is my actual trip, so I want to show you what I did. Over here you got the battery state. So this is the state of the battery's charge. If this is at full, it will show somewhere around 26 or 27 miles, depending on your driving history. So if it's chock full, it will show about 10 miles more than what it does right now. And then as it depletes, it goes down and down, and it will show less than 0 if it's, or less than 1% if it's getting close to 0. And the vehicle by default will drive all electric whenever possible. I'll show you some more stuff on that too. Over here on the right is your range. So this is the total range with the fuel on board and battery on board. So you can see you have 17 miles of electric. It's showing you right there. And then this is showing you how much total range you have, which in this case looks like about 256 miles total. That's 239 miles of fuel. You can see that down at the bottom. Pretty cool and useful info. If you move over a little bit, over here you can see the actual fuel gauge. So that's the fuel that is in the fuel tank. That's the amount of gasoline you have. And then over here is an indicator of how much power you're using. You can see there's a dial that goes up to 100%. So it goes 0, 25, 50, 75, etc. And then it goes in the other direction towards charge. As you charge the batteries through regenerative braking, etc. I'll show you some more that affects that as well. There's a lot of I'll show you some more stuff going on. That's because, you know, I've learned that you're supposed to do a lot of build-up. It creates a need to keep watching your video. Probably. Anyway, right here in the middle, now you can see some trip info. I want to go over this really quickly. So you can see on the battery, I've put 84.3 miles. I did a lot of around town driving. That's pretty much what that is. Then you can see 89.8 miles of fuel. That was mostly on the freeway and a little bit of off-roading because I had depleted the battery by the time I got to the off-road portion. And I did a lot of like downhill stuff in order to build battery back up so that I could off-road on just the battery. It took a lot more effort than I thought, but I got it to work. Anyway, when I do the full review, you'll see more of that. Down here, that's my, excuse me, that is my average miles per gallon. So you can see the total trip was 174 miles, and my average miles per gallon was about 27. So not bad at all. 8 hours of total time in this thing. I've had a great time. I love Jeeps, so you know, you give me a Jeep with any kind of remotely off-road possibility on it, and boom, I'm taking it off-road. That's what I did. I took it down the big hill. You'll see that in the big review video of this too. So anyway, now that gives you an idea of what's going on in the instrument cluster. Now, let me go down and to the left of the steering wheel, and you'll see some buttons down here. This opens the fuel port. Not the charging port. You open that differently. You just push it and it opens. It's on the driver's side outside right there. I'll try to show you a picture. Now you can see these three settings. You got a hybrid setting, an electric setting, and an e-save. These work. Hybrid is the default. So what it does in hybrid mode is it runs on electric when it can, it uses the engine when it needs to, and it drives around like a hybrid, you know, like your Prius or anything else. It maximizes fuel economy, but it doesn't go overboard forcing electrics all the time. It will use the engine when it needs it. Electric mode is the opposite. It uses electric only unless it absolutely has to use the engine because maybe you're going too fast or there is no more battery left. This forces electric most of the time and pretty much all the time for most people. So this is good for like if you're driving around town or if you're pulling into like your driveway late at night. It's anything like that where you want to make sure you're in electric mode. There you go. E-save will drive on the engine, and if I had thought of that, I would have used that until I got to the off-road spot. But, you know, not always that smart. I don't know. Anyway, this will save your battery, so it will run on the engine the whole time, and then when you turn it off, it will let you use the electric or hybrid modes. So there you go on those. That's a major difference in this particular plug-in hybrid. Otherwise, all this stuff is the same. Now, coming this direction, underneath the infotainment down here, you'll see this battery right here. This battery runs this kind of controls how much regenerative you're doing. So it's how aggressive the vehicle is on regenerative braking. So if you turn it on like this, you have a lot of regenerative braking, which means for me that I went off of like freeway on-ramps. So I come off the on-ramp or off the off-ramp. Yeah, that's what I should have said. I exit the freeway onto the off-ramp, and then I just let go of all the pedals, and this slows it down to around like 15 miles an hour by the end of that on-ramp on most of them. And so you're doing all of your braking at that because of that with the regenerative brakes, not the physical brakes. Now, of course, you can use the physical brakes all you want during this, but if you have this engaged, you will do a lot less physical braking than you would otherwise. And you're just adding more to the battery. There's really no reason to turn this off. But if for some reason you do want to turn it off, say you're in a situation like a drive-through car wash, and you don't want the vehicle trying to brake, you can use this. You can also use that for anytime that you want to slow down, like in traffic, but you don't want to aggressively slow down. You're just trying to pace people. You could also just quickly hit this button and do it that way to save your foot a little bit of effort. You can override this in a couple of ways. The first way is, of course, using the physical brake. You just push the brake down. The other way is to use the throttle. So you can use that speed pedal, that gas pedal, that throttle pedal. You can name it what you want. You can use that to mitigate what this is doing. So basically, if you touch it and you're pushing it down slightly, it will not be regenerative braking. So that is a good thing because that is what affects this the most. So you can get this to go down deep into that charge by slowing down from, say, freeway speeds to 10-15 miles an hour at the stop sign at the end of the ramp, and you can really pull a lot of juice out of there. Now, you have to do that a bunch of times before you get any kind of mileage to show up on there, but it is possible. I went off-road and basically just found a really big hill and went down it a whole bunch of times. So all I did was I went down that hill, using just the e-brake to slow it down. And then when I got to the bottom, I quickly hit the button to push it over to e-save, drove back up that hill and did it again. And I did it probably, I don't know, 9 or 10 times at least, and I got just enough juice to show something on there. And then I went and I off-roaded on a hill I want in electric, because I wanted to feel what that's like. And wow, it's beauty. It was beauty. So for the most part, that is all the changes you're gonna see in here. Otherwise, you have the usual Rubicon stuff with the sway bar disconnect and the differential locks. You have the same kind of shifter. You have the same pretty much everything else, including in the back. Now, the 4xe adds a few cosmetic touches. So you see you have your blue here. You have the blue Rubicon on it. You'll have blue highlights, so you can see maybe see the blue stitching. You also have a blue highlight up there on the hood, and you have blue tow hooks, stuff like that. But otherwise, it's exactly the same as any other Rubicon. Now, the biggest difference is in the powertrain, obviously, because you have that plug-in hybrid. Again, I'll get into more of that in the full review of this. So, awesome. That's the interior of the 2021 Jeep 4xe. Talk to you again soon. Subscribe.